All right, folks, buckle in because today's story isn't your regular stroll through Malawi's political calendar. Nope. Today we're diving straight into a parliament session that went from calm to chaotic faster than a Wi-Fi router during a thunderstorm. What triggered all this heat? The brutal killing of Dr. Victoria Bobe, a young, brilliant gynecologist whose death has shaken the entire nation like an unexpected 4 a.m. phone call. And inside Parliament, emotions weren't just high, they were sky high. MPs weren't sugarcoating anything. Ministers were dropping statements like they were on a breaking news countdown. And the tension? Woo! You could slice it with a butter knife. Between Fredokiss Kalua's outside pressure, Moses Kunkuyu addressing the House, and Homeland Security Minister Mukito stepping into the spotlight, this wasn't politics as usual. This was political adrenaline. And today we're breaking down 10 explosive moments that lit up Parliament like Times Square. Trust me, you'll want to hear every single one. Let's jump right into fact number 1, where parliamentary silence didn't just break, it shattered. The blaze started when MP for Blantyre City Southeast stood up, not to clap for the speaker, not to praise the president, not to glide politely through procedure, but to do something Parliament hadn't prepared for, to drop a truth grenade. He rose under Standing Order 14, the serious one, the stop everything, this is national emergency territory order. And in that sharp American news tone we all love, honey, he didn't miss. He raised the murder of Dr. Victoria Bobe, a case so shocking it's been vibrating through Malawi like a national alarm bell. He asked the House to explain how this young doctor was brutally murdered in her home, how intruders drilled through a literal wall, yeah, a wall, without anyone noticing, and why national security feels like it's running on malfunctioning Bluetooth. The chamber went from routine business to this is DEFCON 3 in under 10 seconds. Even those MPs who usually snooze through debates sat up like someone had slapped the back of their chairs. And that moment, right there, set the stage for everything that followed. But if you thought the question was bold, wait until you hear the response that came straight from the government front bench. As the House buzzed, Minister of Information and Digitalization Moses Kunkuyu rose slowly because when the nation is rattled, everyone expects the government to sound like they've got answers locked and loaded. He delivered what officials like to call a structured reassurance, but what everyday Americans might describe as, look y'all, we're on it. Kunkuyu explained that police were swift to respond, arriving on the scene without delay. He confirmed forensic teams were already examining ballistic evidence, officers were tracking leads aggressively, investigations were in full swing, no breaks, no naps, no coffee pauses. He emphasized the administration's commitment to security, reminding MPs and indirectly the public that the government stands firm on justice. But while his tone was calm and presidential, social media back home was blowing up with skepticism. People wanted more than, we're working on it. They wanted updates, suspects, arrests, something solid. Still, his message inside Parliament made one thing clear. The government was stepping into the ring, gloves on. But trust me, Parliament wasn't done grilling, because next came a question that hit so hard, it practically echoed across the chamber floor. One MP stood up and asked a question so raw, so painfully simple, that it made the whole Parliament shift uncomfortably in their seats. When Dr. Bobe sent out SOS signals, why wasn't the 999 emergency line available? Boom. Silence. It was like asking why a fire extinguisher doesn't work during a fire. Turns out, according to MPs, the once famous 999 police rapid response hotline had basically vanished into thin air. Dead, retired, offline, unplugged, collecting dust in a museum of things that used to help people. Imagine being attacked, desperately trying to call for help, only to discover the emergency number is about as active as your old MySpace page. That revelation didn't just sting, it slapped the nation across the face. Parliament reacted like someone just announced that gravity stopped working. And honestly, this point hit harder than any speech of the day, because it revealed something terrifying. Even if citizens try to call for help, there may be no one on the other side. And if you think that was uncomfortable, wait till Fact 4, where MPs pushed an even more delicate topic straight into the spotlight. Next up, a veteran MP raised a question that had the entire chamber leaning in. Are we absolutely sure all forensics, autopsy, ballistic matches, scene analysis were properly completed before the burial? Because let's be real, Malawi has a history of burying victims fast and investigating later, and nothing says we messed up faster than having to exhume a body for a second autopsy. The MP pressed hard, insisting that before the nation lays Dr. Bobe to rest, investigators must ensure every scientific detail is locked down. Ballistic trajectories, gun caliber confirmation, DNA sampling, fingerprint records, injury pattern analysis. The minister replied that police had completed their side of the investigation, though the medical side was still finalizing details. But the tone in the room? Skeptical, concerned, uneasy. Because the last thing Malawi wants, or needs, is to revisit a crime scene because something was rushed. But if you thought the conversation was staying clinical informal, buckle up, because Fact 5 dragged an old controversial law back into the conversation. Another MP stood, cleared his throat, and asked a question that made half the room raise their eyebrows. Why don't we bring back the rogue and vagabond law? You know, the one that lets police arrest sketchy people wandering around at night? Listen, in American slang, this was basically someone saying, let the cops start scooping up the night prowlers again. Now, some older MPs nodded like, yeah, those were the days. But the Minister of Homeland Security cut the nostalgia short. He clarified that the law is dead for good, struck down because it violated basic human rights, specifically freedom of movement. In other words, the government can't just grab people walking at night because they look suspicious. But here's the reality everyone quietly acknowledged. If criminals are roaming the streets freely at 2 a.m. and police can't stop them unless they commit a crime, you've got a security problem with no quick fix. And that's exactly the mood that paved the way for Fact 6, where Parliament's tone suddenly shifted from political to deeply emotional.
The debate shifted drastically when MPs began speaking not as politicians, but as humans. Doctors in Parliament rose to mourn a colleague. Female MPs expressed pain at the loss of a young woman breaking barriers. Senior members acknowledged the massive talent gap her death leaves behind. Dr. Victoria Bobe wasn't just another name in a tragic headline. She was a gynecologist at Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital, a senior lecturer, a mentor, a 33-year-old rising star. MP shared personal stories, how she had helped countless women, how she served tirelessly, how she represented the hope of a new medical generation. The chamber went quiet. No crosstalk, no political interruptions, just pure collective grief. For a moment, Parliament wasn't Parliament. It was a room full of people mourning the same loss. But grief quickly evolved into urgency, leading to one of the most crucial questions of the day. The next major point came from MPs recognizing something painfully true. Essential workers, doctors, nurses, clinicians, work insane hours, many of them overnight when streets are at their most dangerous. So, MPs asked the minister, what are we doing to protect workers who keep this country alive after dark? They demanded hotspot patrols, stronger lighting in vulnerable zones, continuous police presence on hospital routes, emergency access corridors for health workers. The message was loud and clear. If Malawi can't protect its doctors, let alone everyday citizens, then the system is failing at the most basic level. The minister agreed that this murder highlighted a major vulnerability and that night shift workers deserve urgent, tangible protection, not vague promises. But if you thought Parliament was done addressing tough truths, wait until Fact 8, where politics finally stepped out from behind the curtain. An MP rose and dropped a statement that sliced straight through the room. When tragedies like this happen, the public often blames the ruling party, even when it's not political. Translation in American slang is, yo, don't turn this tragedy into a campaign rally. He warned that mixing grief with politics leads to conspiracy theories, blame games, and unnecessary national tension. He urged Parliament to stay focused on justice, not scoring political points on social media. The underlining message was crystal clear. Malawians are hurting. Families are grieving. Professionals are shaken. This is not the time for political theatrics. It's the time for clarity, transparency, and action. But the conversation didn't end there, because public pressure was boiling outside Parliament, and one well-known figure's name kept popping up. Outside Parliament, musician and activist Fredokiss Kalua was already amplifying national frustration. He spoke passionately about the failing security system, the fear-gripping communities, and the urgency to bring justice for Dr. Bobe. And even though he wasn't in the chamber, MPs acknowledged the growing outcry from influencers, activists, and everyday citizens, many of whom echoed the same sentiment. We cannot keep losing our brightest minds to violent crime. Fredokiss reminded leaders that security failures aren't just statistics. They're real lives, real families, real futures being shattered. His pressure helped push this issue from a local tragedy into a full-blown national agenda. And finally, after hours of intensity, Parliament reached the moment everyone had been waiting for. In the final stretch, the Minister of Homeland Security delivered the commitment the nation desperately needed. The government is promising, loudly and clearly, that justice will be served. He confirmed the following. Investigators are actively pursuing suspects. Forensic teams are working non-stop. Community policing programs will be strengthened. Residential security protocols are being revamped. Surveillance improvements are underway. Public updates will be regular and transparent. And most importantly, he urged any citizen with credible information to come forward, because silence only empowers the perpetrators. It was the strongest statement of the day, signaling that the government understands the magnitude of this case and the national anger surrounding it. And now, after this massive parliamentary showdown, one thing is clear. Malawi is demanding more than answers. It's demanding real, lasting change. If this story hit you, frustrated you, or fired you up, then don't just scroll past. Stay connected, stay engaged, and stay loud. Hit that like button so this story reaches more people. Drop a comment and tell us what security reform Malawi needs first. And smash that subscribe button to join the fastest growing news community in the region at GlobalPulseNewz. We're here to cut through the noise, break down the truth, and keep you informed with energy, clarity, and zero boring moments. Stay alert, stay aware, and stay with us.